here's me, a builder, listening to a lawyer and an accountant sitting at a barbecue saying, I'm doing up my bathroom and I'm doing up my kitchen. And I know they're screwing it up. Just like when I tell them I'm writing my own contracts and I'm doing my own finances, they know I'm screwing it up too, and we're all right.
Yeah. G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Level Up, the podcast that is creating a new building industry and giving everyone something to get educated about and improve the building industry. So very special guest today. This guy has done a bit of everything from getting an education in fine arts, roadie for a world-class touring setup, builder, tradie, sales manager, you name it. So big warm welcome to Will Wilson from Heka Hoods. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really well. Thanks, Duayne. Great to be here.
Cheers, mate. We've only just been having a bit of a chat this afternoon. I've already learnt something today, and that is that it's Heka Hoods.
It is Heka Hoods. My line is, hi, this is Will from Heka Hoods. You probably say Heka, but that's okay. As long as you're saying it, we're happy with it.
Well,
but
that's definitely...
It is actually Heka.
Yeah. So what's the story behind that? Because I definitely call it...
So it's two things. One, there is a mountain range in Tasmania called the Heka Mountains. I've never been there, but that's part of it. But the other thing is that Heka is the deification of magic in Egyptian. So it's there's a bit of history geographically there from the director, but also we just like the fact that it's magic. It's beauty, it's simplicity. So,
yeah, well, mate, it's an incredible product. I can't believe it's actually taken someone to come up with such a I guess don't take this the wrong way, but a simple, clean lines, just beautiful product that's so easy to install and makes homes look amazing.
It looks simple, but one of my major parts of my role is the technical side and the engineering. So I can promise you that whilst it does look simple and we work really hard to simplify it going out, it's got a lot behind it. You know, the initial research and development, around the aluminium, around the engineering, there isn't anything out there like it. The wind loading and the cantilevers and all the rest. It looks simple, and it's beautiful, slimline, simple, and effective.
Yeah,
but we work really hard.
Mate, I love it. We use it quite regularly on a lot of projects, but we'll definitely come back and talk more about Heka Hoods. The reason I wanted to get Will on today is Will has, like I said at the beginning, Will has got such a wide variety, a lot of knowledge, but I'm really curious to learn more about your building background and where you come from, because you actually played a role with Master Builders as well, and you're a regional
manager for Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, so I'm really curious to learn your story, mate, because I know you've got a really good story to tell, and I think it'll resonate really well with the guys and girls that are listening to this. So do you want to take us back to how you got, I guess, into the industry? Because, well, maybe actually before that, just really briefly, how did you go from a fine arts education and then a road? Like, I'm really keen to know more about the roadie.
Yeah. Okay. So, in high school, I was a little punk rocker. I had the mohawk, and I was well and truly off the rails. I didn't have a good mental health. I was, quite depressed and anxious, self-medicating, and my dad was a developer at the time, and of course, being counterculture, he was the scorch of the earth. Yeah. I got myself together, spent some time in a mental institution, got myself off of the chems and the alcohol for a long time, got myself going, and then I went to university. I had always had a bit of a creative flair. So I went to university for fine arts. I started out wanting to do photography. Yeah. Then I went into sculpture because I'm very structurally minded. And then I got waylaid and got into performance art and installation. So like I said before, the stuff that most people go, that's not art. Yeah.
Do you think that getting into that, and hats off to you, mate, for talking about the mental health side of it, because that's I got the trademark shirt on today,
and I love it. Yeah.
Big supporter of all the mental health, especially in the industry. But did going to and getting an education on the fine art did that allow you to express yourself and deal with your mental health a bit better?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and a lot of my work was very open for interpretation. People would say, "Oh, what's this about?" And then I would lead in with, "Well, what did it make you think about?" And that would be my goal, is to get them thinking about their own self. Being still in my 20s, I didn't have the maturity yet to even really speak about my own. But I was growing in my ability and growing my toolbox to maintain my own positivity and mental health. staying off the drugs at that age, gave me the ability to move to New York to, with the goal of becoming an artist. And I started out working in a retail, in a bookshop, which was very, very
you
painful.
have done a bit of everything. Yeah, you just throw something else at me. That's something else you've been doing.
Well, that didn't last long because I made friends with a woman in this, who was doing backstage in this internship that I was doing, and she introduced me to other people. My positivity and my creativity allowed me to very quickly build into that backstage technical theater. I worked in some great off Broadway stuff. I did lots of contemporary dance, Fashion Week in New York a couple of years, and just I could just hook in and do whatever, and I really did enjoy that, which led to a couple of international tours by smaller artists, which led to a referral to Stomp, which is the international percussion show.
So they use all the drum bins and
rubbish bins and 44-gallon drums. I used to go to junkyards with a drumstick and I banging, looking for particular sounds, and I'd go into a high-end kitchen shop, and if I couldn't say in whatever language we were in quick enough, I'm going to spend $1,000 here if you just let me do this. If I couldn't say that quick enough, they'd kick me out and I'd go to the next one.
What was that?
Because I'm banging on their pots and pans with a drumstick.
I thought it might have been because of the mohawk. And
the mohawk was gone. I had the big techie tail and the biker leather jacket and by then. So that was a great career, and the creativity brought me into that. I met this amazing, gorgeous human being in '98 in Brisbane at the opening night party, and 25 years later, we're still together with 3 kids and a never-changing life. So
awesome.
That's what brought me here to Australia. I was fortunate enough to work on all the populated continents with local people, and working with our hands. It wasn't building homes, but we were building sets, and with the drumsticks, they were destroying stuff, so we were constantly rebuilding and remaking. That'd
be an incredible experience. Like, I don't know about. Yeah, you always wonder about the life of a roadie, but I imagine it's just go. Like,
the glamorous bits are there, but just like any other career, the hard slog is there as well.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy place to maintain a good positive atmosphere, because all the reputation is true.
Yeah.
All the drugs and all the parties and all the everything is all there.
Yeah.
I came into it sober and grew into myself enough that I started drinking a little bit at the end of it, and I have a healthy drink now, a social drink now.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing career. Michelle came out and toured with us for a couple of years around the world, and then we moved back. She grew up here in Queensland on the sunny coast, so we moved back here with the intent of going down to Sydney, which ironically is where she lived when I met her in Brisbane, but that's probably another 3-hour story.
Yeah.
So we came back to Queensland, got married, fell pregnant, not intentionally but not unintentionally, and bought a house on the sunny coast in Mooloolaba back when you could still afford them.
So I think this is where for me the good stuff starts, because this is leading up to where you got more involved in the industry, isn't it? And
so I didn't want to just be an employee. I'd always been contracting, ever since I got out of uni. I'd always been contracting. I'd always signed contracts and done jobs, and I liked that idea. I think it was my father-in-law that found an advertisement for a handyman business, and I'd had permission whilst I was working on my permanent residency. I had permission to start working, so it was an incredible deal. $13,000 for your own business and blah blah blah.
I'm gonna set the world on fire.
Yeah. But I had the idea, I had the tools, and had a clue basically. So I took that on. I really enjoyed it. I grew that and ended up with 3 and 4 employees within about a year and a half.
So you were being a handyman business. Like, were you licensed at the time?
No,
or
and that's what I was just about to say. Back then, it was $1,000 plus GST was the max you could do without a license. Yeah, which is very limiting.
Well, and mate, over the last 12 months with the price increases,
it's 3,300 now.
What do you get for
3,000? Yeah, same thing.
Even $3,000. What do you get for $3,000? Not a lot.
Exactly. Well, and that's good. That's correct, because we need licensed people in the industry. Yeah. I look back to some of the things that I did then. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that was your big step. That was your leap into the industry.
That was my leap into the industry. Like I said, I built over about a year and a half. I built up to where I had 3 employees. They were all running around in their own vehicles,
Yeah.
doing these little handyman jobs. Sometimes we'd come together. And then an opportunity presented itself. My father-in-law's ex-business partner, who had been a builder, he was a builder open, has done some pretty amazing stuff here in Australia,
Yeah.
wanted to get his license back. He wanted to go and get his recognition of prior learning so that
Yeah.
he could build his retirement home. So we had a handshake of a deal. I paid for his RPL, supported him through that. And then as soon as he got his license, we became partners. So I was working in a licensed company. I got into the TAFE, was
Yeah.
doing my Cert 4. So basically I was running a licensed company with the assistance of my partner. I learned lots of things, some good, some not so good from him.
Like, just go back a little bit. So when you dived in the deep end, bought this handyman business, had you had any business experience?
No. I didn't have a clue. We made it up as we went. And my wife became my business partner. She had been managing a bar down on the front of Bondi for a few years before she came out on tour with me. So she's got a very she's an incredibly organized brain.
Yeah.
But really that sort of micromanagement organized brain. She's now a wedding planner and incredibly good at it, and a wedding coordinator. So she runs the show, and that's her skills. I don't have that. I can add up the same sums 3 times on a calculator and get 4 answers. So I don't have that mathematical. I don't have that.
But it's all right, but
yeah. I so
think
she took that on, and we made it up as we went.
Yeah.
We knew we needed contracts. I can remember.
So you were partners with this other guy for a short period of time.
For 2 years, yeah. So basically, he came on board. I think it's still the same. I've been out of master builders for a couple of years, but you needed 2 years of experience with your Cert 4 running construction, and the Cert 3 in carpentry to get your license. They've changed the requirements around that experience now. They've tightened it up. I would not have gotten my license with the experience I had then. But my partner was licensed, so we were doing a lot of like renovations, small renovations, structural repairs, termite repairs, just jobs from 1,500 up to probably 20, 30 for the first year. And then we took on a few sort of more major renovations and additions and things as we came near the end. Basically, as soon as I got my license, we dissolved that partnership and we took off. My wife and I took off on our own partnership.
So it was all just stepping stones getting you towards where you wanted to be.
And making it up as we went. We really didn't have. I wish we had, somebody offering us systems and processes and as a coach, and probably even more so than me, my wife is very much, if we can do it, why would we pay somebody else to? Knowing what I know now, I know why you would.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think the problem is you don't know what you don't know. And you think it's all just it'll fall into place, or the next job will get easier, or the next job will make money, or we'll catch up on the next one. Like,
exactly. And you don't know, if you don't know why you didn't make money on the last one, well, you're not going to move forward. Exactly. And that was exactly what we were doing. One of my early shop fit jobs, signed a contract that was a 1-page document that I wrote on the computer. And funny enough, it went astray.
So you weren't using an industry association contract?
At that point, no. And this is what led me to Master Builder as a member. At that point, no, we were just making it up as we went. And it made sense to me, and he signed it, so it was all good, right?
Mate, I am 100% sure there's a lot of listeners out there that they're just sitting there going, I'm not the only one doing this dodgy shit.
Well, what happened was he decided he wasn't going to pay me the last $20,000 of a $75,000 job because of his list of demands. I didn't know what to do. My plasterer at the time said, hey, go down to Master Builders, which literally was around the corner. I went in and had a 3-hour talking to about contracts and signed up as a membership, and got some help and got out of that one. And then I started using proper contracts. But still not knowing what I had in Master Builders, it's a great association, and there's so much there, but you have to reach out. The Master Builders can't come get you by the scruff of the neck and go, you need this. The offers are there, and you have to drive that.
Mate, Master Builders, like our industry is full of so many great associations and great advice and training and things, but I don't know, a lot of it's like, again, you don't know what you don't know,
and we're so time poor.
We're time poor, and like, I don't know, I think it's just a tradie and a builder mentality where we're the last ones to try to put our hand up. We don't want to admit that we don't know, or we're doing something wrong, or we're struggling.
If I can make it work, why would I pay somebody else to do it? And it's like I say to people all the time, all right, here's me, a builder, listening to a lawyer and an accountant sitting at a barbecue saying, I'm doing up my bathroom and I'm doing up my kitchen, and I know they're screwing it up. Just like when I tell them I'm writing my own contracts and I'm doing my own finances, they know I'm screwing it up too, and we're all right, because
100%.
Our brains are wired in different ways.
Yeah.
I've got a very structural brain, and I've also got a really good communication brain. So I avoided more conflict and more disputes than a lot of people, because I would make my sales on communication, and I would sit down even at a very early stage. I always wanted to sit down with them and explain my quotes so that they knew what they were getting, as best as the words that we could get. And words are slippery. They're translucent. They're not opaque, and they're not hard. So, I think one of the hard parts, mate, for builders and tradies and a lot of people in our industry to get their head around. And again, it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. But I was the same. I was exactly the same. I started off not using contracts, got myself into lots of problems and stuff. But it's like, and now with my Live Life Build business, where we help builders run better businesses. Like we've put so much money back into that business and doing studies and surveys and things, and by building the systems in my building business and then improving them through Live Life Build that we now give to our members in our Elevate platform, we know now that to run a successful business in the building industry, 75 to 80+% of the tasks that it takes to run a successful business are off-site. Oh yeah.
And like, most people get into being a trader or a builder because we're good with our hands.
Exactly.
Like that's and we don't like sitting down and reading things, it's just no interest to us at all.
Exactly. And because we're not interested in it, we're probably not good at it either. Even if we can muddle through and make it work, somebody else is going to do it better and faster. So if I'm paying you $100 an hour for 3 hours to do my books, or I spend 2 days doing it, not as well.
Yeah.
I'm then going to spend a day and 5 hours, or 7 hours as it normally is in the industry, doing what I love and making more money.
Yeah.
I struggled to get that through. And to be honest, Michelle was probably even more so on that financial side, and getting in, like I wanted to get in business coaches, and I was also terrified of it, because I didn't want to spend that money.
Yeah.
And
well, it's a hard call, isn't it? Like when you're struggling to make ends meet, you're having issues with your jobs, like, because and like, I'm a massive believer on it now. Like you've got to spend money to make money, but when you're in that situation, it's really hard to get your head around. Like I don't have the money to spend, or I want to spend it on something else, or I need a new tool. Or
the other side of that though is, as blokes and as good tradesmen, we're terrified to let people know we don't know something. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Mate, that's
I get somebody in and they go, oh man, everything you've done is completely and totally wrong. You've really been screwing this up.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt me. That's going to cut me to the core. And then I've got to admit it first off and then fix that. So, that was that was probably my side of the fear was, I don't want to admit that I've made this all up and I've built this pyramid on a really terrible structure, and the cantilever is not really going to work very long.
Yeah, it's about to fall over.
Yeah, and we nearly did fall over a couple of times.
Yeah, but it's like, you're so right, mate, and that's again, you don't know what you don't know. You just got to put your hand up and ask a question, and like a lot of the time, it may sound like a lot of money to get some training, get some help, even to sign up to Master Builders or whatever it may be. But
or your program, same thing,
yeah. But you're going to get that back like tenfold. Yeah. Like, because when you can get that help and education in your contracts and you're understanding your overheads and your running costs and all those types of things. But even just like, I find our industry struggles even with the simplest things. Like one of the good things, examples I talk about is like even just setting business hours. Like people think that for some reason, tradies and builders, they go and do their normal day job. They can have their working hours, but a tradie and a builder will meet them whenever they want you to meet them, and that could be 7, 8 o'clock at night.
6:30 on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's my time. Yeah, exactly.
But just having a simple, whether it's on your business card, whether it's on your voice message, whether it's on your email signature, just having business hours.
I think part of that is, as a tradesperson working for a client, we have a real anxiety around turning them off us.
Yeah.
Getting them offside.
Definitely, 100%.
We're afraid of that conflict because we're the bank. We've put all this money into whatever we've built before we can invoice it.
Yeah.
And if they go off us and they can and they do, then we're more likely to have that argument. And it's the same kind of thing, I guess, with master builders. One of my biggest roles was dispute management, and I'd literally go out and have the meetings. And the owners would, as soon as they got, the builders would go, yes. Oh, you thought that was included. Okay, I'll put that in. And that was it, site cut stage.
Yeah.
And then there'd be another little one at slab stage. And then, oh yeah. You thought that there was an extra wall in there. Okay, so we'll just frame that in at frame stage. And eventually they're just taking the piss. And eventually you're going backwards and you're bleeding and you're just smiling on the outside, but you want to throttle
you're singing
them.
From my book. I love this.
And then as soon as you say no, they lie down kicking and screaming like a 2-year-old in the lolly aisle.
But
we set it up though. I set that up. That was my biggest problem, was just, I'll put that in. No worries.
That's but you're 100%, mate, on the money there, because you don't want to, we've got this pack process where we get to know the clients, and it covers lots of different things. But one of the biggest benefits that has come out of that is exactly like you're just talking about now. Like, we take all that out because we've already built a relationship with them, and we've set an expectation and a standard. And like, I used to do that exact same thing. Like, you're struggling for cash flow, you're picking and choosing what bills to pay, you've just won this job, you rush to get it into some sort of contract, you might be missing documents, whatever, but you're like, I just need this job. Like,
I need the deposit to pay off the last job.
Yeah, so you're doing whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And then you start on site, and like, mate, the amount of times I was in situations where, like, the first day on site, there was something that I should have been doing a variation for. And exactly like you just said, you're like, oh man, I can't piss the client off already. Like, I'm just going to have to.
As soon as you do it once, then it becomes the process.
Yeah.
It becomes the expectation. And if you do it 3 times, there's so much of my jobs, and so many of us do. 3 times, well, they're never going to accept a variation because you've done everything else for free.
Yeah. And then and exactly like you said, when it does get to a point. So this was me. So I would do that, and then you'd start doing your walkthroughs at frame stage or whatever, and they'd ask for some nogs here or whatever there, or like you said, throw a wall up.
Yeah.
But then something would come up that you would, like, well, a lot of the time it wasn't me, it was the wife or the bookkeeper saying, Duayne, you've got to charge for this. Like, you can't keep doing shit for free. And so you'd get something that might come up that might have been a few $1,000s, and you're like, oh, we do need to charge for this. And like you said, because you've set a standard, you've given them all this rope, and you've let them have all these extras, then just shit hits the fan.
But that's become the process.
Yeah.
So it certainly isn't a written process, and it never would be.
Yeah.
But that's the way the relationship is built, and then
from them it's over.
Yeah,
like, from then the whole job is just an
argument.
It's an argument, and then you get you get stressed about phone calls from them, or you don't want to meet them on site. You try and come up with excuses to not meet them.
Every time the phone rings and it's them, you're like, oh, what's it now?
Yeah. And I think it's so easy to get stuck in that cycle.
Yeah.
And again, it's. And look, the other thing I think that makes this even worse is, and I think this has really been highlighted, especially in the last 12 and definitely 6 months, with the industry being incredibly busy. Trades, like builders, but especially trades, they're busting their ass on site. Like, they're there, like, they're on site. They might have an apprentice or a couple of employees. They're doing the work. They don't have time to be like, oh shit, this is a variation. Like, I'm on site. Like, when am I going to do the paperwork? And then by the time they get home in the afternoon, they're buggered, or they want to spend time with their kids or whatever. and it just gets not thought about.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, that's not just builders that are going through that process. The trades aren't doing the variations with the builders either. And it's the same sort of thing is, the builders now expect that, oh, okay, they'll just do everything.
Yeah.
And same process. When they finally go, oh, look, mate, you're taking the piss here.
Yeah.
You lose it because you haven't charged for it. Now they're going to charge for it.
So it's just it's a horrible cycle, isn't it? That our industry is really
adversarial.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's grown into a really adversarial industry. And,
yeah.
You're focused on residential, but I've got, a bit of experience in commercial as well. And commercial's probably more so.
Yeah.
So, I think that's one of the most important things is, to have those systems and have those processes. And from the get-go, if it's a variation, it's a variation.
Yeah. So, mate, what was your turning point? So you were saying before, like you did get to a point where, like, you're pretty much going backwards. You're losing money.
So we built a good company into GFC. We actually we thought the GFC was over, and we did a joint venture, and I built 9 townhouses with a partner from Melbourne. Absolutely beautiful. I still love driving by them, except I got out with my pants down around my knees.
Yeah.
I was incredibly fortunate that I had a very positive partner, and he literally paid me enough to get out of it without going broke.
Yeah.
He saved my company.
And so do you know, like, looking back, do you know what, like, was it contractual issues?
We paid too much. We paid too much for the land.
Yeah.
We thought that the property pricing had leveled out and was going to come back up, but it took another dip. And then we made some mistakes that was one of the timing mistakes, but also in timing. So we built something that was quite sustainable, low cost of living, but nobody could see any value in that because they could go and buy a dog box down the road. So we ended up offloading them for the same price as the two bedroom, 2 bath, single car lockup, same as at good finish quality, not brilliant, but good finish quality, but with a really high sustainable element to it. To the little cooker dog box down the road with a
it's sad, isn't it? So what were you did you think, like, getting to that point and having that opportunity to do your own project?
That was it. I was gone. That was going to make me. That was going to make us. We were happy as.
No more clients. No more problems.
No. And then after that, all we could get was one really difficult client. Like we just managed to snag this one job. It was a renovation of a lift and rebuild down in Caloundra, through an architect that he'd actually drawn those townhouses for me and that I got on really well with. But he announced to me as the job was being awarded that he wasn't going to be it was on one of those ABIC contracts.
Yeah, architect administered contracts.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, a lot of administration. Like, for anyone that's listening that hasn't done one of them, or even might have done one, but yeah, look, they're great, and I think they can work really well, but you have to know them back to front, and you have to have a good architect. Well, and to administer them. You've got to have someone administering them in your team. Yeah, because you'll find that the architect's got a team behind them administering it. You're on the tools trying to do everything, keep the job going, and the paperwork involved is insane. So he handed it off to another architect, and I don't know. I don't know what happened. I've got my theories, and it's probably not fair for me to say anything. But you didn't have a relationship with her? Not beforehand. Yeah. It started out well, but then when perfect example of just the head-bangingly frustrating parts of this. I asked what the color of the bottom of the custom Rytec roof was. It took 3 months to get an answer. Yeah. It wasn't in the specs. I knew what the top was. It was surf mist. Yeah. 3 months to get an answer, which, if you read the ABIC contract, was completely and totally wrong. And, I could have been charging, and I should have, but I didn't, because I just didn't want to piss the client off, blah. More paperwork. Yeah. Yeah. So we'd gone in cut rate. It took forever. Lots of variations, some of which were agreed to, some of which weren't. At the end of the job, the client literally got me in a quiet place and said, mate, I've done my research. It's going to cost you 40 grand in legal fees before I have to even answer you. Go for your life. Oh, guess how much he owed me, Duayne? 40. Bingo. Yeah.
So I actually went and spent $3,500 with a lawyer to do the research and say, yep, if that's actually his attitude, that's true. So I lost the 40 and the 3,500
Mate,
with the lawyer. And that
yeah.
was the tipping point. That was the one that really took the guts out of us as business owners.
Mate, well, good. Like, I really appreciate that you're telling this story, because most people that listen know my story. I've got pretty much the exact same story as you, but I wasn't silly enough to get out the first time. I let it happen to me multiple times, and I know that will resonate a lot with our listeners. So
that job actually sent me into a massive mental health spiral. Brought on a huge amount of depression and anxiety. So I went back and saw a psych and was on the antidepressants again for a long time after that. But that was really just at the end of the GFC. We traded insolvent for probably 3-4 months, just doing little jobs, cashies, whatever we could do to survive. And then we started, I had to let just before that job, I had to let my supervisor go. And he was the heart and soul of the company. You know, he was the one that I could leave on a job and know that, okay, he might not make exactly the same decision I would, but I would always be able to accept the decision that he made. It would be finished to the quality that I needed, and the decision would be acceptable. Letting him go was before that, and then that job was the last straw. Because we had nowhere to go and because we had no money, it was probably another 2.5 years, and I finished on a commercial refurb of a shopping center up on the coast, ironically for the same guy that I did that joint venture with. But I wrote a really good contract on that. Very fair. It was a cost plus contract, and I literally, when I handed in my invoices, I had spreadsheets that showed him where every single 5-cent piece had been spent and a description of what for.
So mate, looking back, because I think like it's so awesome that you've told your story about that, but I think the next lot of information is probably more important. So when you look back at that situation, like I know when I used to think back, like it took me years. Like I would think back to the situations that I was in, and I used to blame everyone but myself. And it took me took me a long time to actually understand and know what I had been doing wrong. Like, do you look back and review it and think, well, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this?
If I had a proper business, you know, we bought a job basically. If I'd had a proper business where we actually had more than just accounting paperwork and you know, spreadsheets for takeoffs and you know, pay slips for the boys. If I had a system that I understood the budget, I understood, you know, where it was. If I
your running costs,
processes, you know,
contracts.
Exactly. Well, we had contracts. By then we had contracts. I got burnt really early. So after that, we always had contracts. Did I know what they meant and did I use them properly? No. But we had contracts. When we got into that joint venture, I did actually learn about contracts and use them properly, and I had a workplace health and safety system. But it was the processes around the business. If you know, we knew what our running costs were, which was probably, you know, a step above, you know, a lot of people in the industry, because we actually knew what it cost us to just open the door to the all right, well, it was our house, but you know, the office, the turnkey. But having the processes around, you know, the ordering and the finances and really around the budgets and the budget forecasts and the cash flow and understanding all of that and understanding, you know, what the actual profit was, not just putting a markup on and how painful is this guy tax as a percentage on the bottom.
But even having contracts, you've got to have systems and processes to execute that contract.
And I had, like I said, I had the paperwork, looked good, you know, but I didn't understand until I started training other people and using them. I didn't understand what the clauses were and, you know, how they worked, and how to execute that contract.
Variations, time extensions, delay costs, like just
never. Well, I had variations, but time extensions not very often.
And then that it just snowballs, doesn't it? Like you're like something that could have been avoided with a bit of variation paperwork or even just a meeting with a client and setting an expectation and talking them through a process to deal with a variation.
And understanding, I think, you know, like I could do the takeoff, and I knew pretty well what the times were, and I used my tradies to give me costs on things that I couldn't. But understanding how to build that takeoff into a proper profitable job, rather than, that's what it's going to cost. Oh, I really want this job, so I'll take another $5,000 off. You know what I mean?
And that's what everyone does, isn't it? Because and for me, like, I love data now. Like, I'm addicted to it. And again, I think it's a trading and builder thing. Like, we think it's a bit nerdy. Like, we don't. But once you understand the data, because if you're not tracking every single cost in your business, because I was in the same situation. Like, I would literally sit at meetings knowing that I was already short and not had the margins in that I needed, but in my mind going, I need to keep the boys busy. I couldn't pay those bills the other day. I need to get this contract. I need that deposit. And and so I was, without trying to, I was attracting clients that wanted me to lower my pants, like drop my pants and lower the price.
And you get that reputation. And when you get a referral from someone who you did that for, that's the expectation. So once you start the momentum into that side of the industry, and that side of the industry is huge and brutal.
But you're literally sitting there.
It's really hard to get out.
Sitting there knowing you're not making what you should be making anyway. But the client, like I remember asking clients, like, what's it take to get this job? And they'd say, oh, look, we've got this other price for another builder. If you're 10 grand, if you're 15 grand lower. And like, look, if we do this, we do that. Look, if we drop the 15, have I got the job? Yep. All right. No worries. Let's do it. Shake a hand.
And you start off. You're 3 weeks behind on a program that is tight already, and that's in your financial side as well as
and the other big issue in our industry is it's not just those meetings with the clients. Like so many builders and tradies have architects, designers in their ear, like, oh mate, you're 100 grand too dear. Like, what are you doing? Like, can you lower your price? Like, so our whole industry, I believe, because we don't track and understand data enough, you can't make an educated decision. And because builders and tradies don't tend to know their running costs, like they work out their costs, they throw 10, 15, 20, 25% on top. And so in their mind, they're going...
and that's the on-the-job costs, not all the other costs, which are massive.
But in their mind, because they don't know the numbers, they're like, oh, I've got 250 in this job. Like, I can drop 20. Not knowing that as soon as they've dropped that 20, they're out. Like, they've only just broken even, or they've just covered their overheads, or whatever it may be. But it's pretty. And
then you get to the end of the job, and you're like, "Where's the money? I don't understand." Then if you don't have the data, you don't have the way to go back and go, "Oh, okay, that's where I missed."
Or you get to the end of financial year, and your account, like this is I don't know. I'm a bit of a hater on this one, but you get to the end of financial year, and the accountant does all your pay work, and the accountant's like, oh, you've made $160,000, but your company's lost 140. And there's no one does education there to go, well, you've only made 160 because you've just kept using the company credit card, pulling all that money and stealing it from the business. So that looks like it's your income, but that money that you've actually taken out of the business means that the business made a loss. And if you put all those together, you've gone backwards. So, there's so much improvement to be made in our industry, mate. And I definitely take my hat off to guys like yourself that are willing to tell their story and put it out there. But like, you've had a massive turnaround from that. Like, you moved on from, you obviously put your hand up, you took responsibility, you owned your mistakes, you were able to trade out of that. And then move on to a great career like you were.
And the Master Builders was a great job. It really was. I'm really good at talking shit and helping people. Not so much myself, but I'm really good at talking shit and helping people. And that was what I got paid for. I was the industry expert. I was a bit of a media tart. But I think,
But you were real, like, sorry to cut you off, mate, but I know a few builders that have had dealings with you. Like, that's actually how I got in touch with you from Craig, one of the guys.
Great bloke, great builder. Who uses your systems and sings its praises massively.
Oh, mate, he's such a great guy, and I got a lot of time for him. But I think I take my hat off to you for coming out of the situation you're in and then jumping into that role, because like I said, the feedback from like the way you're able to energize, like what Craig tells me, like you energized people that you're around, you got them motivated, you got them understanding running a better business, you got them coming to Master Builders events. Like
I had a juggernaut behind me. You know,
yeah,
the master builders. You know, I, I've got a mentor there who I still call with technical questions from
yeah,
Heka Hoods.
yeah,
But you know, he was just fantastic, and his passion is understanding building. He's more on the technical end, but you know, he helped me as a member.
yeah,
But I had that whole master builders system behind me, so I knew, and I didn't know everything, and I still don't, and nobody does. At
yeah.
even, you know, I don't
Mate,
care who you
no
are,
one will
nobody
ever
knows
know
it all.
everything about our industry.
But I knew that if somebody asked me a question, I could say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you in 24 hours, or I'll get somebody else to get back to you in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it was freeing for one thing,
Yeah,
but it was so satisfying for me to be able to provide that for others. And like, you know, Craig was fantastic. Craig is one of those guys that he goes out and he seeks that help, and he looks for it. And that's, you know, that's why he and I become good friends.
yeah,
And that's one of the things I just really respect you know, from him.
yeah,
But so many of us, me, you know, I didn't do that when I was out there because I was afraid of, you know, showing weakness, and showing that I didn't know things. So, and that was why when I was there, I had, you know, I looked like I knew everything, but I knew.
So did you take it? Did you take it a bit more personally because you had been a builder and you'd gone through difficult times?
Probably.
And like you took it on your shoulders to like, I'm going to help this industry. I'm going to help these builders that I'm meeting.
Yeah, I guess because I could relate so well with, you know, the day-to-day issues and the, you know, the big nasty ones as well. I really did. And I, you know, what broke me from that role was the dispute management, because I got a bit of a reputation as being really good at it. And I took it on with both hands and both feet. And it went to something that, you know, especially once COVID kicked off, you know, and everything was in such disarray and everyone was so paranoid about everything. The disputes just ramped.
It'd be pretty negative environment being around every day.
Yeah, it was too much. And, you know, there's a lot of things I really miss about that role. But I was also ready. I think I'd done what I could. You know, there's changes in, I'm not one who, like a lot of people in our industry, I don't fear change. I was always looking for the next new thing. I was always looking for new products. And an opportunity came up with Heka Hoods. It was ironically, I made a phone call as a to welcome the director, and we just got to speaking, and she's built an amazing company, and builders could take a huge amount of leaf out of the books. You know,
Can you tell us the story? Because
sure.
You've touched on a little bit with me about how Heka Hoods come about, but I just think it's incredible.
So the business Heka Hoods had joined Master Builders as a member, as a you know, manufacturer supplier member. And one of my roles was to call the new members and say, hey, I'm Will, I'm your regional manager. These are the services we offer. This is this is how you contact me if you've got any questions. And I think I left 2 or 3 messages and had given up. And about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from the director of Heka Hoods, and she and I just got on really well. You know, we have similar passions, and she was just asking really good questions, and a lot of more around compliance. You know, they were going through a huge engineering review, and really expanding their understanding and their capability of being able to provide that, you know, that high-end product with the fixing advice that's permanent and compliant. And you know, I had seen the first Heka Hood I saw was when I took a judge to a property to inspect, and there was a full surround on a corner window, and the judge and I were driving out. We didn't even know this was the house. We're like, look at that. Ironically, I dropped my daughter off there next door a couple of weeks ago, and it still looks fantastic. But I told Yvette that story. And she knew which hood I was talking about. It was the 8th hood they'd ever quoted. So, you know, that was a nice little connection. She was really passionate about doing things properly. You know, the product is, you know, we actually have a core value of simplifying it for we simplify as one of our core
Yeah.
values.
Yeah.
But there's so much intense research and development and engineering, and the workshop, the fabrication team are incredibly passionate and precise, and I could hear all of that in her, and that's me. I always wanted to leave. I love driving down the street and going, oh, that still looks really good. I wanted to leave my jobs with the job in a really good state, having done the best I could. And we wanted to have a happy client. Sometimes it wasn't possible, but that was also my goal. And I could just, we just connected in that. And as I said, I think, one of the things that I really enjoy about Heka Hoods is that it's a well-built business.
Yeah.
And that's translatable. It doesn't matter whether you're a manufacturer, supplier, a restaurant, or a builder, or a subcontractor, or a podcast producer, whatever you're doing. If you have a well-built business where you've got a good understanding of your financials, how to build sustainably, and that's incredibly difficult to control in an industry like.
Well, and it's a really important one at the moment.
Yeah.
Or moving forward.
Having a really good culture.
Yeah.
In your team.
Culture's huge, mate. I think culture gets overlooked so much.
Yeah, it does. And it's a hard one in our industry as well, because we're so protective of what we know and so scared of what we don't.
Yeah.
That culture and communication and supporting each other is something we really miss. But also the passion about, the quality of that product. So we had that conversation, and over a few weeks and a few long interviews, she convinced me to come over in a business development capacity.
Yeah.
But my roles sort of morphed. I'll probably do more account management and technical management for the company now.
It's a great company, and it's going gangbusters, isn't it? Like, it hasn't been around that long, and it's just cranking along. Do you export, or is that only Australia?
We've got a couple overseas, but technically no. We've sold them to Australian companies who've taken them over. We do have goals, but currently we're producing so much in Australia that our workshop is just like every other industry where you need a tradesperson. We're struggling to continue to build that base. We have, and I'm so proud of this as the company I work for, we have really kept our price rises to an absolute minimum over the last couple of years. And we have never had to say, sorry, we don't have the aluminium to make your product. And we have really kept our time frames to pretty much within our standards, you guys, with a few blowouts.
Like in the last 6 months, 12 months, like the amount of materials and stuff that we have had delayed or got to reschedule, whatever. And like we keep thinking, Heka Hoods has got to blow out sooner or later, but you've been keeping your lead time pretty tight.
We work really hard, and there's a lot of people in the team that have put in a lot of time, sweat. The workshop has been doing huge overtime hours. The drafties and the estimators as well, because we're just passionate about not letting our clients down, and that's building the reputation of the company. It's and it is something that we're passionate about, and because we've got those systems and processes, and that system starts.
I love it. You keep coming back to that, mate. You've obviously learnt your lesson, because this whole podcast you keep systems and processes. Well,
I know that if I had them, I'd probably still be building. And I'd probably have more money than I do now. Maybe I'd already be retired, but having gone through master builders where there were systems and processes, and then moved into a smaller growing company, but a company that's growing through those, is only just hammered that deeper into my psyche.
Like, your having experience as a builder would definitely be helping you. Like, you'd be able to problem solve with Heka Hoods. Someone gives you a phone call, asks you a question, you know what they're talking about, like where to fix it, where to get installed, like all those types of things.
We have good fixing advice, but builders aren't really good at reading instructions. Neither are the tradies that are putting them on. Being able to do that FaceTime call, and having that shared experience has been helpful for me, and it's helped me build those relationships. But knowing I have the support and the backup of the company behind me, that we will always do everything we can to meet those time frames, it makes it a lot easier for me.
I think that's hilarious, mate, that you said that, because that is something that I believe gets lots of builders into trouble, because they pick up the phone, or they send an abusive email to the architect or the designer or the homeowner before they've actually stood and got a better understanding of the drawings. So Yeah, and we're the ones that are at home trying to put the IKEA furniture together with no instructions. And
one of the things that that I've learned, probably more so in Heka Hoods than in any other place, is the difference in processes and systems, and even just down to the words that are used on a job site. So you know who you came up under. Who you learn from is how you say things and how you hang a door. And there's probably 30 different viable ways of hanging a door.
Yeah.
You know, it would be really easy for us as a manufacturer if every builder had the same process, because then we could hook in and use the same process for all of them. But every builder has a different process.
Well, mate, and then how do you think the poor homeowner feels?
It's
like,
true.
The homeowner doesn't have a clue on the lingo that's getting used.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that leads to a lot of disputes, because the builder thinks that he's clearly communicated something. The homeowners are going home and scratching their head like, what the hell is it? Like, what are we doing?
The gulf in expectations is the biggest cause of disputes. You know, generally most disputes are, no builder sets out to go, I'm going to screw this guy, I'm going to piss him off, and I'm going to do defective work. Yeah. No, none do. Well, there might be a few fraudsters that go out to screw people, but having you know a different lingo in building than a dentist or a teacher or you know whoever means that, you know, I say, and I know exactly what I mean by whatever it is, you know, I've got a Heka hood, you know, but if you've never seen a Heka hood, you have no idea that, oh yeah, okay. And you might have a you know, a big, like a Vergola in mind, you know, something that's moving and all the rest. So, and I think that's a real problem. Oh, in my mind, that was already in there. And there will be the odd occasion where that's somebody trying it on. Yeah. But the vast majority of that is the homeowner just really, you know,
doesn't know.
You've sold them a home. They can't read two-dimensional plans and put it in 3 dimensions. That was one of the things that probably my least favorite part of a job was finishing, because I already knew what it was going to look like. I knew I could look at those two-dimensional plans and I knew exactly what I was going to finish with. So I was, you know, like, yeah, of course, that's what it was going to be. And I, you know, did good work. But the homeowner can't. They can't see that. They don't know what that drawing means.
They have an expectation already drawn in their mind. And
which we can't see.
Yeah, which we can't see, which is different to the one that we've got in our mind, which is possibly even different to the one the designer or architect had.
Absolutely.
And so, and then you throw the lingo into that, and it can be a real mess. But
you're saying one thing and I'm saying another, and we're both, you know, tendering for the same job. That's even more confusing for them. Yeah. You know, because you came up in Brisbane and I came up on the Sunshine Coast, and we worked for different builders and we use different words for the same thing.
Yeah, actually, I've never even thought of that. But yeah, if you're like, we don't get involved in tenant scenarios anymore. But like, I've never ever thought of that. But if you're a client and you're getting multiple quotes from builders and you're having conversations with all of them, no wonder that the client's getting confused, because all 3 or 4 builders could be all saying the wrong thing or the different thing.
Different things, exactly. I mean, I've spoken American English, I've spoken British English, and I've spoken Australian English, and the same word means different things, and different words means the same things. And it's the same way on job sites. Yeah, it's so often.
Mate, could you give us a little bit of an insight? Like you touched on that you got involved in handling disputes. Like what was a bit of a theme? Like, what was the most common dispute?
It was expectations. It was a gulf in expectations. Yeah, I thought this was in there. It's not in your contract. Yeah. And the words are vague, you know, and absolutely 50-50, you know, the builder, they knew what they meant. Yeah. And the owner knew what they were expected. Yeah. And both started out with the best of intents, but as the job progresses and you get to your finished structure, it's not what I expected. And that was the biggest dispute. And it's the hardest one to get through as well, because the only real way to resolve a dispute is, well, the only easy way to resolve a dispute is if it's in the document, specifically not included. Yeah. Well, I don't know why you thought it was there, because it says it's not. Yeah. But if the contract is silent or vague, what's compliant and what's not with the contract, and that was really hard. So. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually glad that's what the main one was, because I think builders should provide proposals. Like our software quotas we have, it's a tool that allows traders and builders to produce quality proposals. So I believe like a quote is just something, or an estimate is something when someone calls you or you meet in the street or whatever, that's what you provide.
Yeah.
But to do an actual job, you need to provide a lot more detail. And so I call them a proposal. And for me, that proposal is about pulling information off drawings, listing drawing numbers, so like as an example, like I use fit outs as an example because I think it's one where a lot of builders can get into trouble because a builder might have their own standard that they allow every single job. And that might be, as an example, let's say it's 62 by 11 bullnose skirting and 42 by 11 bullnose architraves and flush finish doors and a particular type of door handle.
Yeah.
And so that's what they've quoted, and that's what
But they've only put architrave, door handle, skirting. They haven't described it.
Well, they've said bullnose, but it means nothing to the client.
Yeah.
So they've gone to contract. That's what they've priced. Like the owner reads their quote. It might say internal carpentry fit out, but there's no detail. Yeah. And then so there's no discussion. The job gets to fit out stage. They order the fit out, smash it in, and the client comes on site and like, oh, we didn't want that. Yeah. Like, what is that there? And they'll be, oh, that's your skirting. Yeah. Oh, we didn't know we were getting that. What is that, rounded one or what? Like they don't know the lingo. They don't know what it's called. So,
and that's that golf and expectation.
Yeah, but just something that simple that the builder does it, or the carpenter does it every single day and thinks nothing of it. And then like I know plenty of builders and the reason I use fit out because I do know plenty of builders that have got into situations where they've had to rip out a fit out because it's gone to a dispute and they haven't provided detail and. So it gets into this horrible situation where it's now costing them money. The client's frustrated. The relationship's broken. And it's really hard to come back from that. It is. Yeah. That could have been resolved. Like this is something I do, and it takes me no time at all. Like I've got offcuts of different types of skirtings and architraves, and at the weekly meeting, whatever 2 weeks prior to fit out, like when we're starting to think about ordering the materials. I show them to the client, say, oh, look, this is what we've actually allowed for your skirtings and architrave. Are you happy with these? Yeah. And the other reason I use fit out is because so many people I talk to, clients, don't know what a skirting or architrave is. Yeah. So, and to me, I'm just like,
exactly. And like you say, bullnose, you know, I say bullnose, you say bullnose. We know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. But our owner, bullnose, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. And they're doing exactly what we do when we need help with our accounting and our systems. It's going, I don't want to look like I don't know anything. I don't want to show vulnerability to this guy who I'm spending $500,000 with at least. So I'm just going to go, yeah, okay. But in their head, they're not understanding what you mean.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is they go away and go, oh, that's great. We don't know. We might not want that bullnose, but there's a figure in there. Like I'm sure when it gets to the stage, he'll give us more detail or show us an example.
One of the things I used to do that was really successful and I think avoided a lot of disputes was I would really spend a lot of time with clients before giving them the proposal. Yeah. And then I would not just one place with a dollar on the bottom. Yeah. I would actually spend a lot of time and create as much detail in it as possible. And then I would go and print 3 copies, sit down with him and her or whoever they might be, and one with myself, and just go through exactly what was included. Because
mate, that's such good advice. Yeah, like, you got to put the time in before you get a contract.
I didn't always win. Well, no, I take it back. I hardly ever won jobs on lowest price. Yeah, but the vast majority of the jobs, and especially the ones that went really well, that I did win, they would say, look, you're not the lowest price, but we feel we've communicated really well, and we know what we're going to get with you. Yeah. I had, again, those partners that I did the joint venture with where we didn't make any money. I had done...
Don't keep going over, mate. It's all good. Let's move on.
I had done a unit reno for one of them in Mooloolaba, and it was just a holiday unit for him. He lives down in Melbourne. It was just a holiday unit for him. And he said, here's a key if you want to take people through. So I could say, if you want to see what finished job looks like.
Yeah.
I'll take you to this unit. And I never ever took anybody in there. Anytime anybody said yes, we ended up working with them.
Yeah.
And that was such a wonderful opportunity for me. I don't think that's something that's going to happen a lot. But it was like you're saying, with your offcuts, the more you give them a visual of, beyond just the words that we know exactly what we're talking about, the more likely you are to avoid those disputes and to have that communication be as positive and as thorough as possible.
And it's not like, I think the thing for the guys and girls listening, it's not their fault. Like we do it every day, we talk about it every day, and but I think the flow on from that is it's across the entire job. So like we might constantly talk about 6x6 tiles, or we might say 300x300 tiles. The client's been to a showroom and in their mind they've got these big, large format tiles, but they don't understand what 6x6 or 12x6 or whatever it is. So,
and they also don't understand that laying 300x300s versus laying 1200x900s costs more. They don't understand why. It's the same meterage. Why would that cost more?
Yeah, like I think my favorite saying now, I live my life by it, is nothing happens to you, it happens because of you. And so every situation I get into, I think, why did that happen? And I think if a lot of builders and trades out there took on that, they would definitely start to improve their business. And I think you've got to take feedback, and even if that feedback's from yourself, doing reviews, because it's so. Building a house is like nothing else. Like there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of products in it. There's hundreds of different trades, labor, suppliers. Like you're pulling so much together. And there is so much room for error or miscommunication or missed expectations.
Yeah. And no two are the same, even from those project builders, because it's people. There's so much human contact and interaction in it.
Yeah, well, you're building something for yourself, like something that suits you, something that's a home that you feel comfortable in. So
I think one of the things, you mentioned about, mistakes and things happening because of you. One of the things that I started early on, and I do think helped me to be able to build back up and to continue to trade, was whenever a mistake happened, whenever something went wrong, I would try and engineer it out of every single other job. I had a list of clauses that went into my proposals, and that then became special conditions. And anytime anything ever went wrong, there was a line that went in.
Have you got an example?
Oh, far out. Unless things are specifically included, they are not included.
Yeah.
That was one, and I think that's a pretty common one.
I always
asbestos was one, because I did a lot of renos and refurbs, and I even found asbestos in ground. If asbestos, there's been no allowance for asbestos, or this is the allowance for asbestos.
Yeah. Again, just setting that expectation. I do a similar thing with machines. So in our earthworks component of our proposals, I list what size machine I've allowed, and say to the client, look, if we hit rock or a larger machine's required, there may be a variation.
And do you do it as a fixed price and a variation, or do you do it as a provisional sum?
No, so we don't. Earthworks doesn't go in as a provisional sum or prime cost, but it's just making them aware that I've covered earthworks, but to cover that, I've allowed this
much time in this machine. Yeah,
and that
one massive mistake I made. I took on it was a really fun job, and I wish that I'd made money out of it. I took on this really difficult excavation job, and I had provisional sum. Yeah, provisional sum is where there's the labor included. I had a provisional sum, but what I didn't do when I counted my provisional sum, I used all of the machine work, because it ended up, it was a $50,000, and I ended up with $100,000 worth of machines. Just hitting the volcanic bluestone, the basalt, and oh man, it was a nightmare. But I didn't add, and this is where I learned a lot, and I engineered this out, but this was an internal, wasn't one of my lines. I didn't add my supervision and my team's supervision of that excavation. So I ended up probably losing 15 grand.
That's a common one, mate.
Because I just didn't think, oh, well, there you go. This is part of that provisional sum. And in my I didn't frequently do excavation as a provisional sum because this one we knew the engineer had said, you're going to have a nightmare here. We had, but I hadn't listed supervision site supervisor and laborer in there, so I couldn't claim any of it.
And that's definitely something that a lot of homeowners, and again, it's not their fault, but they don't appreciate the amount of time that is involved in managing and supervising and running a job. Like, so that supervision, or that machine obviously went way over, and as that goes over, as you say, like, you would have needed to be back on site, checking heights, rescheduling the job because the earthworks is taking longer. Like, there's so much more administration involved.
Well, I had literally 2 guys on site because it was excavation and board pit, retaining walls, and so I literally had 2 guys on site all day. And it was like an extra 15 days or something. I got an extension of time, and I got the extra money for the excavator. But that hurt a lot.
Mate, you've been a definite bucket of wealth today, like the knowledge and I think the experience that you've shared. And I think just before we wrap it up, like, you've touched on mental health a little bit. I do think it is a pretty bad problem in our industry. And I feel that it's because people are going down the path and not making the money and not running a good business like they should. And like, for me, from my experience, like, I wanted to be a chippy. Like, that's all I wanted to be. And then when the business side of things took that passion away, it really hurt. And so I think, what's your advice for guys and girls out there? Like, is it like speak up, talk to people? Like,
it's 2 things. One is to talk about it, to find a number of people you trust who you can just go, I'm really having a shit day. I feel absolutely miserable. I feel worthless. I can't seem to get anything right. And that they're just going to give you what you need. We all need something different from that conversation. Some people want somebody to go, oh, whatever, give us a big hug. Some people just want us to go, I've got the same thing, and just sit there and listen. But the other thing is to have something outside. You need to be doing something for you. You need to have a passion outside of the building. If your sole existence is in the business, if you're thinking about it 20 hours a day, thinking about it, working on it, you need a reset time.
Chill out.
I may not look like it, but I actually go for a walk or a run 6 days a week before I start work, and it just, nothing else matters. I used to be a soccer referee. I call it football, but I can say soccer because most people call it that. And it was the same kind of thing. It was, I'd go out there, there'd be 22 players, a ball, and me, and everything else just went away. It didn't matter. And that was a huge part of my mental health. You have to have something else for yourself, and you have to have the ability to recognize when you need to just go, I feel like shit. And have someone or a place where you can do that comfortably.
No, mate, look, really appreciate you coming on board. Appreciate your time. Your advice has been awesome. I think a lot of our listeners are going to get a lot out of that. So, look, I guess if there is anyone out there that's struggling with mental health and that, make sure you get on the phone and call whoever you need to call. But I think the last thing I'd like to say on this podcast is that it's okay that you don't know how to run a building business or a trades-based business. We've all been through it.
Nobody teaches you.
The
TAFE, you get what? 4 hours for your Cert 4, Cert 3,
well, you learn your trade.
A week for the Cert 4. Nobody teaches you the business side, but Ready QBCC will smash you for not knowing it. So
look, guys, as usual, always shout out if you've got any questions at all. We're always here to help. And get out there and smash it. Cheers, guys. Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.